Okay, these are the topics we're going to cover in this part 2 of the desk build video. But if you haven't seen part 1, click on the link above and it will send you to that video. Watch that first and then come on and check out part 2. This is O from CLO Ed TV. We're at the shop today. Today's objective is we got to cut these legs down. That's why I got my apron on, and we're going to go ahead and weld these up. I got the titanium welder, Flux core welder today, and we're going to go ahead and get these legs welded up. So for this project, I decided to go with 2-inch tubing. And right now I'm just laying the tubing out, making sure everything looks good. I'm testing angles out and just trying to get a good feel for what would look good. Okay, now I'm measuring where I want part of the A-frame to land. So I just want to go a little bit off the bottom of the legs, and I'm using my speed square. And if you see me use this piece, it's just to make sure that when I make these marks that it will land completely flat on the desk, nice and even. Also, when it touches the floor, you want to make sure that the legs touch nice and even. Right here, I'm just showing cutting off the A-frame with the 2-inch stock. Later on in this video, you're going to see me correcting my angles. I started off with a 15 degree, but it just ended up too steep of an angle. So I went back and put 10 degrees on each post. A little bit goes a long way in projects like this. Okay, so for this instance, I'm using a 4.5-inch cutoff wheel. Now, I've got to attach it to the grinder. Once I get it attached to the grinder, then I'll be able to finish out that angle. So you got to be careful with these grinders, because these grinders can walk on you. So you have to have a steady, slow cut. Let the wheel do the cutting. Have a steady grip and control it. All right. Okay, so I'm just basically finishing out these angles on each leg. There are 4 posts I have to do. 2 posts go on each leg, and then a crossbar to make the A-frame shape. Much appreciated if you watch the sequence of the cutting and grinding, but just to get the idea, you can skip ahead if you'd like. But watching the video all the way through always helps. So now I'm going to put a shallow angle about 15 degrees and test this angle out. I have enough stock to kind of experiment with. What I'm going to do is get that 15-degree angle, then made up the other side of the legs to this and see if that's a good angle. All right, let's get these cut. Now, one thing I want to mention, the cutoff wheel here is smaller. Has a smaller disc on it, and also when you're cutting, it doesn't meet all the way down, so I will have to rotate this. Another thing you could do is use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel and mark your lines with the speed square. But for right now, I'm gonna see what I can do with this, and then if I have to use that, I'll use that. But you can use either or as long as it's marked. As you can see, it cut down pretty deep on the front end, but it didn't cut all the way off the back, so I have to make sure that cut finishes out. Decided to change my angle for this one. All right. Perfect 15-degree angle. Now we got to go ahead and just do some cleanup and do it 3 more times. And then on the legs, same thing. It's going to be a straight cut, and then we'll keep it moving. All right, here we go. All right, everything's going pretty good. Went ahead and cut all of my angles, and if you notice right here, I've cleaned up all the parts and edges where the welds are going to go. So everything is cut and cleaned up, as you can see. And a couple of ways I found the angles. One, on my cutter there was a 45-degree angle, but I also used this 3D printed protractor to go ahead and find the angle. As you can see, this gray part snaps on and you can actually move this. So I put a 10-degree angle on all my iron, and now we're about to weld it up. So that's the next step. Now in the welding sequence, I'm just demonstrating welding 101. Basically, you're going to make your bead on each end of the plate that you're trying to weld, and then you do one run straight across. When you watch the video, you'll see me making that bead on each side, and then one smooth run straight across. Now I'm using another piece of 2-inch tubing just to make sure the bottoms will line up, and throughout I'm checking my angles. When you're welding, you clean as you go. I just got a wire brush and scraping that weld that I just made. All right, and rotating the legs, make sure I get in both top and bottom, left and right sides. Alright, the legs turned out great using the titanium Flux Core 125 welder, and as you can see, it just needs some cleanup, and the welds turned out great. The legs pretty much stand up on their own, as you can see. So I gotta sand these down, get these ready for paint, then set these aside. Also probably on the bottom of the feet, and I'll just point this out. Here I've got to add a base plate, which will also be drilled and tapped, so you can add feet to this this desk. All right. Okay, and here are a few pictures of the A-frames put together, minus the base plate and the top plate. Also, you can see the angles that I readjusted. This is the 10-degree adjustment that I made, and you can tell the 15-degree, which is a little too narrow for me. So I readjusted that. Now in these clips, I'm making the top plates out of 2-inch flat bar. First I gotta do clean them up, and then I will start marking them for holes. Now I skipped the sequence of me cutting these plates out, but you just get a long 2-inch flat bar and cut to size. I cut each top plate 6 inches. That way I can divide them by 2-inch sections. And the foot plates are 2 inches square. Yep, so in this clip, I'm just making my lines, making sure that the lines are even on each plate, and then I'm going to take it to the drill press. Now, just like with the grinder, With the drill press, you do not force the bit down into the metal. Use your cutting oil and let the bit or the drill bit do the work, and it'll go and cut through like butter. Now once you get that first hole down, the rest go really fast. Don't worry if you see smoke in the clip, it's just coming from the cutting oil. And all other plates look just like this one. Okay, once the top plates were done, I had to go back to the welder and go ahead and weld them on top of the A-frame. Basically what these plates do, mounting plates, is attach the wood top to the steel legs. Alright, and I'm just basically making my beads on each corner. Then I'm going to run one solid weld across each bead. Alright, making my beads, and then right after you'll see what it looks like with a full run right across. I'm just zooming in, showing you some clips. Okay, in this clip we are mounting the base plates, and like I said, they're just 2 inches flat bar in a square. You see me do my spots first, and then you run one solid bead right along the top. Alright, and it's just a matter of repeating the process. There's 4 bottom plates, 4 top plates, 2 legs. Now in a project like this, as long as you take your time, measure twice, and make sure that as you go clean up and make sure that everything is done to great quality, then you'll come out with a good product in the end. I do these videos to demonstrate what you can do DIY, and you could save a lot of money working on your own projects. Now in this sequence, all the welding is pretty much done, and now I gotta clean up my welds and get it prepped for fill and sanding, and then last step in the video will be painting. All right. just repositioning and grinding. When you're doing your cleanup, you want to make sure everything is smooth to the touch. So as you grind, you want to move your hand over the grinds and feel for smoothness. You don't want any rough spots or spots that could snag. And here is a clip of the finished legs. Everything mounted together. The welds really turned out great. Alright, here is a clip with the filler. And there's a picture with the legs standing alone. Okay guys, so I plan on skipping this part, but I wanted to show you this before I cut. What I've got here is a piece of almost 2-inch tubing, and I've already cut it down almost to the edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down, cut it across right here, and then fold it over and then hammer it out flat. And this is going to be the crossbar for the desk. Okay, so once the crossbar is folded out, we got to add some holes to mount them to the legs, and that's what this clip is about. So we're going to look into that. Same bit. Take your time. Make sure the hole is nice, and make sure the bolt fits inside. Okay, ladies and gents, the next thing I want to talk about is drilling and tapping. So I want to make sure that this bar as an extra support piece stays in place. So what I'm going to do is use this 3/8 tapping set because I have 3/8 nuts over there and lock washers. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that as you're threading, you want to go, whatever you do, if you go 2 turns forward, you want to go 1.5 back, and make sure that just like this, that thread glides nice and smooth. So anytime you thread anything, you want to make sure the hole is just slightly smaller than what the bolt that you're drilling and tapping in. You want to make sure that it's vertical to where you want that screw to mount, and make sure that that threading stays even. Alright, thanks. On to the next part. Okay, here I'm demonstrating the process of drilling and tapping. Now this adds a different value to your pieces and your projects, especially when you're giving them to a client. I wanted to make sure that assembly would be very simple to do, ease of use. So I wanted to go with bolts, and that's what I did. Just want to make sure you get that first bite, and once you got that and you're straight and even, take your time with this. You can break the tap sets, the dies and the taps, if you try to go too forcefully with it. So take your time. Make sure if you go forward twice, you come back once. All right, and eventually you'll see, once I keep going down and doing this, it's going to get smoother and smoother. And about at this point, I'm all the way through. I'm just cleaning that thread out. Here just to prove that the thread is just right, I'm getting my 3/8 bolt, and the thread was so clean that I could just tighten it by hand, but I went ahead and got a wrench, and we're going to crank it down. once again, same thing on the other side. Test the holes. You want to make sure you're testing these holes out to make sure they're holding the bolts right, and then you got a nice lock when they tighten down. Okay, and here's another close-up of the drilling and tapping process. So we're just going to crank it down in there, and then once the thread is made, get your bolt and test it out. Make sure that it functions properly. Okay, and after this step is the last step of the video, which is going to be getting some paint on these legs. All right, and here's a clip of the completed set of crossbar with bolts, and it's looking good. I just wanted to showcase the difference between with the primer, without the primer. As you can see, this is everything welded up and filled on the back side, but you can tell that primer gives it a nice layer for the paint to adhere. And I'm going to be excited to go ahead and add that paint to this layer. So what I'm actually going to be using, I'll show in the next clip. I'll be using the Krylon stainless steel finish. Although this is a Rust-Oleum primer, I'm going to try this out, see how this looks on there, and I think it's going to look great. All right, let's get to it. One thing you want to keep in mind is trying to add paint to a surface without primer is like a disaster. I'm kind of old school, so I like to have my steps separated. As I said in my first video with the tabletop, I don't like stain and sealer in one shot. In the same way, I don't like primer and paint in one shot. So I like to separate my primer layer and my paint layer. I just feel like results turn out a lot better that way. But if you want to do a one step and that works for you, that's fine. So pretty much I'm just laying down the Rust-Oleum primer in this clip, and then you'll see me switching clips back and forth between the primer layer and then the paint layer. One thing I want to mention in this video is don't be intimidated by trying something new. I have welded before, but not many different projects, but in this case scenario, this was my first project for a client, and it turned out awesome. Any imperfections that may come up, just go back and correct them. It may take a little time, it might be a little bit slower, but that's fine. Just make sure that you take your time and make those corrections.